taking aim at corporate America, cultural imperialism, and government oppression. Rage Against the Machine formed in Los Angeles in the early 90s out of the wreckage of a number of local groups. Vocalist Zack De La Rocha emerged from the band's Headstands, Farside, and Inside Out. Guitarist Tom Morello originated in Lock Up, and drummer Brad Wilk played with future Pearl Jam frontman Eddie Vedder. Rounded out by bassist Tim Commerford, a childhood friend of De La Rocha's, Rage debuted in 1992 with a self-released, self-titled 12-song cassette featuring the song Bullet in the Head, which became a hit when reissued as a single later in the year. The tape won the band a deal with Epic, and their leap to the majors did not go unnoticed by detractors, who questioned the revolutionary integrity of Rage Against the Machine's decision to align itself with the label's parent company, media behemoth Sony. The quartet made their official major label debut with Rage Against the Machine, scoring hits with singles like Killing in the Name and Bomb Track. After touring with Lollapalooza and declaring their support of groups like Fair, Rock for Choice, and Refuse and Resist, Rage spent a reportedly tumultuous 4 years working on their follow-up. Despite rumors of a breakup, they returned in 1996 with Evil Empire, which entered the US album charts at number 1 and scored a hit single with Bulls on Parade. The track Tire Me went on to win a Grammy for Best Metal Performance. In 1997, the band charted a summer tour with rap group Wu-Tang Clan and remained active in support of various leftist political causes, including a controversial 1999 benefit concert for death row inmate Mumia Abu Jamal. Third album The Battle of Los Angeles followed in 1999, also debuting at number 1 and going double platinum by the following summer. Album single Guerrilla Radio scored Rage a second Grammy, this time for Best Hard Rock Performance. A live set from the era The Battle of Mexico City was recorded for a documentary of the same name and released in 2001. In early 2000, De La Rocha announced plans for a solo project and the band performed an incendiary show outside the Democratic National Convention in August. In between, bassist Commerford was arrested for disorderly conduct at MTV's Video Music Awards following his bizarre disruption of a Limp Bizkit acceptance speech. Plans for a live album were announced shortly thereafter, but in October De La Rocha abruptly announced his departure from the band, citing breakdowns in communication and group decision-making. Surprised but not angry, the remainder of Rage announced plans to continue with a new vocalist, while De La Rocha refocused on his solo album, which was slated to include collaborations with acclaimed hip-hop artists including DJ Shadow and LP of Company Flow. December 2000 saw the release of De La Rocha's final studio effort with the band, the Rick Rubin-produced Renegades. It featured nearly a dozen covers of hip-hop, rock and punk artists like EPMD, Bruce Springsteen, Devo, The Rolling Stones, the MC5 and more. By 2001, Morello, Wilk, and Commerford had formed Audioslave with Soundgarden frontman Chris Cornell, and the group released an eponymous album by the end of 2002. With the De La Rocha solo album still not announced, Epic finally released the long-promised concert album live at the Grand Olympic Auditorium on CD and DVD in time for Christmas 2003. Over the next few years, rumors of a Rage Against the Machine reunion always swirled but never came to fruition. 2 Audioslave albums followed in 2005 and 2006 before the group split. Then the next year Morello began releasing protest folk punk as The Nightwatchman. That year also brought the long-anticipated Rage Against the Machine reunion. The band played the closing day of 2007's Coachella Festival. Then in 2008 several other gigs followed, usually coinciding with major festivals in Europe and the US. No new studio work from Rage Against the Machine materialized, but De La Rocha collaborated with former Mars Volta drummer John Theodore in a group called One Day as a Lion, releasing an EP that year. The next burst of Rage activity came in 2009 when there was an internet campaign to get Killing in the Name to the top of the UK charts, all in the hopes of thwarting an X Factor winner from taking the pole position. The viral campaign worked and Rage played a free celebratory concert at Finsbury Park in the summer of 2010. Despite all these gigs, including a summer 2011 appearance at LA Rising, a festival the band arranged, and word of a new album, no recordings appeared. In 2013, their debut album received a deluxe reissue, and 2 years later, the 2010 Finsbury Park gig was issued as a CD and DVD release. The next year, Morello, Wilk, and Commerford joined forces with Public Enemy's Chuck D and Cypress Hill's Be Real to form the supergroup Prophets of Rage, releasing a self-titled album in 2017. But behind all that, there is an interesting fact from Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine was banned from Saturday Night Live. Right from the start, Rage Against the Machine wrote music that was loudly and fiercely opposed to American systems of power. Songs like Bulls on Parade, with its searing takedown of the military-industrial complex, and Killing in the Name, which pulls no punches in the assertion that some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses, were launched onto the charts and into radio, controversial messaging and all. Still, all the popularity in the world couldn't stop Rage Against the Machine from being censored regularly. One of the most infamous early examples of this was their first, and only performance on Saturday Night Live in April 1996. According to Rolling Stone, the band's 2-song performance was cut down to 1 after they attempted to hang upside-down American flags on the amps during the set. With billionaire and then Republican primary candidate Steve Forbes hosting the show that night, RATM saw the perfect opportunity to voice their opposition. Instead, they were essentially chased from the studio and banned from performing on Saturday Night Live ever again. Police often disrupted Rage Against the Machine shows. As with their history of censorship, Rage Against the Machine has a long and storied tradition of having their shows disrupted or shut down by police. According to the Seattle Times, Sheriff Bill Wyester attempted and ultimately failed to block the band from performing a concert at the Gorge, claiming that RATM's presence would lead to disorderly behavior. A performance and demonstration at the 2000 Democratic National Convention led to a crowd of about 8,000 getting chased out and beaten with batons by mounted police and fired on with rubber bullets, according to Salon. At least 6 people were arrested, an action which was condemned by the American Civil Liberties Union. Perhaps most notable was the New York Stock Exchange incident. According to Rage Against the Machine, the band was in front of the building, filming a music video for Sleep Now in the Fire, helmed by documentary filmmaker Michael Moore. Police eventually arrived and ordered the makeshift concert shut down, detaining and removing Moore. Rage Against the Machine, along with members of the crowd, attempted to enter the building, and in an incredibly rare occurrence, the NYSE's security doors slammed shut, and the entire exchange closed an hour early. Zack De La Rocha experienced racism early on. Zack De La Rocha was born on January 12, 1970 in Long Beach, California. His father, Roberto De La Rocha, was a muralist whose politically charged Chicano artworks with Los Four introduced the radical art style to the area. According to the LA Times, the elder De La Rocha was part of a landmark Chicano art exhibition in the mid-70s, but shortly afterward, he destroyed all his paintings and retreated from the art world for 20 years. The powerful messaging of these works was an early influence on Zack, one which would later be reflected in the socially aware and righteously angry music he'd write with Rage Against the Machine, in collaborations with other artists, and solo. De La Rocha's parents divorced when he was still a baby, and he was raised by his mother Olivia Laureen Carter, in the city of Irvine in Orange County. There, in an overwhelmingly white area, Zack experienced racism and bullying for his Mexican heritage. One particular incident in high school, during which a teacher casually used an anti-Latino racial slur to De La Rocha's classmates' amusement, reinforced for him the insidious nature of racism, as noted in Rage Against the Machine Stage Fighters. According to the book Know Your Enemy, De La Rocha called Irvine one of the most racist cities imaginable.